Let's look at the video. To do quick that's one now. It's the end time I forgot.
Prevent cavities. We brush with Pepsodent for strong teeth and healthy mouths.
What happened? Nobody came to play. I think everyone is ill. When Hamilton comes, it brings sudden weather changes, cool mornings, hot during the day, with haze, with lots of dust everywhere, spreading germs even faster amongst us. That's why
we'll use soap with oil, wash pretty clothes in two pieces, wash one with regular powder and the other with Ariel. As Ariel cleans in one wash, and regular powder, let's give regular powder a second chance. And after the second one, who wins the one wash challenge? Convenient cleaning, a good wash.
Tiny invisible.
Well, if you're just joining us, this is Kakaki, the African Voice on African Independent Television. The 13-year-long trial of Hamza al-Mustapha, the former chief security officer of late military head of state Sani Abacha, ended yesterday, Monday, January 30th, with a death sentence pronounced by Lagos High Court. According to the judgment delivered by Justice Mojishola Dada, al-Mustapha had not sufficiently established his innocence over his role in the murder of late Kudirat Abiola. As such, the former CSO and his accomplice, Lateef Shufalong, who was a personal aide of the late Kudirat, will face the hangman's noose. Lawyers to the accused, however, say that they will appeal the High Court judgment. In the meantime, what does the outcome of this judgment portend for the nation and our judicial system? Joining us to discuss the issues arising from this judgment are two very important personalities who are also legal luminaries. We have a senior advocate of Nigeria in the House, Chief Adegboyega Awomono.
Thank you, good morning.
You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, good morning.
And also very capable, a lawyer, civil rights activist, national coordinator of proactive gender initiatives and NGO, Esther Uzoma. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, judgment.
Well, it's a vindication of the law, I would say. And for me, although it took a long while, but truly the wheel of justice grinds slowly, but surely will end rightly. I mean, for almost 30 years or thereabouts, the trial went back and forth with vicious allegations against each and every judge that had it, either that they demanded bribe or that they tried to compromise their integrity. And at the end of it all, but let me say that the comment of the learned counsel for al-Mustapha is the most uncharitable anybody in this world can say of the honorable judge who did her job effectively, efficiently, and with all conscience. To say that it is travesty of justice is clearly a very uncharitable statement to say from a legal practitioner, and I'm almost likening it to a professional misstatement and misconduct. It is wrong.
Well, if you agreed, because he did say, is it not in his position and his right to appeal the judgment? Which
That was why I say it's a professional misstatement and misconduct.
Okay.
The accused person has a right of appeal because he's aggrieved. And he will state in the notice of appeal and grants of appeal all his areas of disagreement with the judgment of the court. It was not the judge's doing, it is the law that she was applying upon the fact that is presented before her. Come to think of it, the learned counsel was also there throughout the trial. He cross-examined all the witnesses. He led his own witness, and he presented his client's case. Does he expect to win every time? Does he expect that his own argument is superior to the law or to the wisdom of the judge? Everything they say, as their lordship pleases, it is in total submission and respect, because these judges are representative of God on earth. They administer human justice as much as their intellectual ability and wisdom and knowledge can go. No lawyer can say it's wiser than the judge. Yes, when we want to appeal, we say it's unreasonable, unwarranted, having regard to the evidence. Yeah, it is a clinch, but it may not be true. So I think the judgment has vindicated the law. And in any event, whoever kills by sword should be ready to die by sword.
All right, I'll go to you, Esther.
Well, the answer to that question will, unravel the entire clog in our criminal justice system. You see, and to answer that, we have to look at the roles the various players are, exhibiting in our criminal justice system. We have the police, we have the lawyers, we have the judiciary. All this come together, you see, to waste time, in quotes, and also to make sure that at the end of the day, justice comes forth. Just like the LLC did mention that, well, you see, at each point, somebody was accused of bias. At each point, somebody was accused of bias. So, there has to be numerous adjustments from the part of the judiciary to make sure that, okay, let's get a satisfactory column. When somebody, stands a risk of losing his life, he puts in all these guards. You see, our Mustapha, perhaps is a victim of the system. I do not know. Because a closer look has to be, let's even pin it down to what happens to when your superior gives you orders that are not, in confluence with the law. You say, but then it's obey before complain. Who knows what will be questioned? Just like the other man that was just killed, the leader of the Bokites. Suddenly they were demanding for justice. But I'm sure that somebody gave that young man the order to shoot. So these are victims of a system that is not perfect. That's the jurisprudential dialectics of it. If we take it higher, if we look at the philosophical dimensions and say, oh, this is where we pin it down. You see, what then is the liability? Not just people who kill, but about people who take people's things in the name of the law because a superior officer has said it and they are bound to obey. Who comes, to speak on their behalf at the end of the day? These are the various dimensions. But for the time wasted, it's because, well, the accused persons, they wanted the best. They complained about everybody and they took their time. But at the end of the day, the courts have spoken.
On this area, people are looking, she just raised a very cogent point, which was who bears liability for the orders that are given. Al-Mustapha was not the head of state. Al-Mustapha was the chief security officer, our head of state, who we all knew in this country, whose reign at that particular point in time was anti-Abiola, and especially because of the kind of statements he made. He actually took over when there was a vacuum. Could it not have been argued, sir, that Al-Mustapha was just playing to the script of the government of the day, and as a civil military officer was just obeying orders?
Yeah, in my culture, you don't accuse the dead of any wrong. I will not ascribe to the late General Abacha the script that was purportedly or allegedly given effect to by Al-Mustapha. The law does not look at who gives the order. The law looks at who committed the crime. The law looks at those who participated in putting together the death of Mrs. Abiola and murder. And in any event, the criminal liability, there's not like vicarious criminal liability. You cannot say somebody will be guilty for the act or conduct of another person. You are liable for what comes out of your heart and exhibited by your hands or by your mouth or by your whatever.
That's another confusion, sir. I'm looking at the internet now, and what most of the people are saying. The average intelligent viewer listening to you is a bit confused at the kind of judgment that came. You're talking about you're liable by what comes out of your hand or exhibited by your hands.
Yes.
It came out of their heart, conspiracy.
Yes.
Some other people exhibited this act.
Yes.
Those people are free. I'm talking about Sergeant Rogers. And, you know, can you explain that and make it clear to people to understand exactly what freed Sergeant Rogers and his accomplice?
You know, in criminal trials,
Yes,
there
please.
are always many parts to it. From the thinking of it, to the description of it, to the execution of it. You know, there are always a chain from beginning to the end. And in the chain, from the strongest to the weakest, there's always a link. But certainly, the prosecutor has the discretion as to who to prosecute. And in that wise, you will find in the developed countries, you find that at one point or the other, the prosecutor has to choose between 100 conspirators, which of them to prosecute and which of them to use. And you must realize that you cannot get the truth of any matter unless somebody who participated in the crime gives the clue. And whoever gives the clue, usually, it's always the best person to tell the truth. And you know, I'm sure up to the last moment, Shofolahan and Al-Mustafa will be claiming innocence. But by the evidence of Rogers and all the rest of them, they have been able to tell us how it happened and how it did it.
This is just to prosecute.
Yes.
So where is the balance to that?
My own understanding of this system she's talking about is the military system under which the crime was allegedly conceived, prepared, and executed.
Yeah.
You know, it is an assumption that it was the military government that did it. It's an assumption. And the law will not look at who planned it or who thought of it. The law will look at and punish the one that carried it out. I have not heard Al-Mustafa or anybody, or even Sergeant Roger or anybody say to the court that it was the president or the commander-in-chief or somebody else who had conceived the idea, who had given instruction. It is an assumption. And it's a rebuttable assumption. And that's why I want us to be a little careful in condemning whoever is presumed to be the source.
This is a very topical issue, and I'm sure it's, you're watching 4625-207. Once again, 09-4625-207. I'd like to ask you, Zoma, please make it clear to me. I'm still
Wondering.
I'm still wondering. Could the scenario have played differently if it was Mustafa who first came out to support government and say, listen, I have information concerning this case, and can I enter some kind of plea bargain and implicate Rogers and the rest of the gang? Would the hanging now would have been 4 people like Rogers instead of Mustafa?
You see,
I'm looking at the possibility of that.
Yes, one of the sweetest part of our existence is that our possibilities are endless. You see, so to ask me to give a considered view of what may have happened, you don't ask me to play God. You see, I can't do that.
Maybe it's a bit too politically heated.
Not just political, I can't. And it is the genius of the human mind. You see, one thing about us as human beings is that we give reasons for all our actions. Okay. We have a system that says, listen, obey before complain. And we have a man who was, a servant in that system. During that reign, like the learned Silk did say that, well, we don't blame the dead. Perhaps it's also part of his persuasion that the dead are not blamed for actions taken by the living. Perhaps, I do not know. But I'm playing that role of advocatus diaboli, the devil's advocate. Let's even see. Let's give him the best that there was. You see, no comets are seen. Julius Caesar said, no comets are seen when bad guys die. But heavens blaze forth the death of princes.
Princes.
A lot of people died. There were a lot of extrajudicial killings. You know, nobody's even talking about that.
No court cases.
Nothing. Paucity of funds, a lot of access and all that. But talking about this one specifically, you know, it will give the next soldier in the barrack, you know, he will be cautious in taking orders. He said, listen, you know, because what we're saying is that these things are not absolute. Because at the end of the day, somebody will have to, you know, you will be on the line.
Talking about the line, there's someone on the line from Enugu. Godi.
Oh, really?
Good morning, Godi.
Good morning.
Godi from Enugu is calling us at this time. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Godi. Good morning to you.
Hello. Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Fine. I'm Abuja.
Hello, good morning. Godi, if you have a contribution or a question, go ahead and make it.
Hello. I'm hearing you. I'm very happy. And this to show that division is coming up of age in Nigeria. And Ali Mustapha, if I may say, might be a child of circumstance, because what we all know is that the military will beg for complaint. Then in judgment, that judgment to serve as a lesson to some people who are at the end of affairs, trying to use their position to do whatever they like. You know, here in Nigeria, we believe that you can do anything and get away with it. But that is not true. But for Ali Mustapha, I think what happens there is that the military is to look for complaint. And we do take a look on this issue very serious. Because that young man there might do something that others could do from the hierarchy above. So what I'm saying is that let it be a lesson to all Nigerians who think that they use their position to do whatever they like and get their position. Thank you, gentlemen.
Godi has spoken. This is still talking about the system, being the victim of the system. And you can hear from what he says, people do whatever they like because the victim, it's unfortunate to be part of the system. So how do you explain that to him?
You see, it's unfortunate, but something has to give. We can't go on like this. That young man, perhaps, I do not question the wisdom of our court. I don't question their prophecies. I do not hesitate to obey their oracles. But then, let's break it down. Somebody says, go and do this. In any event, he said, look at yourself, for instance. You're doing something. And suddenly somebody comes and says you have defamed. But you did something that it was in the line of your duty. And suddenly you're guilty, perhaps you're liable for defamation. How do we look at that? I am saying that maybe he is a victim of such circumstance. And truly, you see, persons in the military, they should take a cue from it. Because it does appear that at the end of the day, it is the whims, it is the desires. Eventually, there's a crucifixion by the people who said, today they are the ones shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna. And in the next one they said, crucify him, crucify him. So your only salvation lies in obeying the law and then following your conscience. So that at the end of the day, whatever comes out of it, you say, at least, I followed the law.
Maybe the worst case scenario he would have had a court martial at the end of the day. But we never really truly will know if he was ordered or he gave the orders himself. Bayo calling from Kaduna. Bayo, good morning.
Could you turn down the volume of your TV set so that we can hear you clearly?
Okay, let's get away from this. Is it clear now?
Yes, that's much better.
It's better.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, in secular laws, when you delegate, you take responsibility for delegation. But in the military, even when you give instructions, and the person is supposed to follow the instructions, whatever the consequence comes out of it is the delegate behind accountable. When we're talking about Al-Mustafa, I strongly believe that there's no way the guy will sit somewhere and think of all this. The perception of Gujarat was not a Mustapha was against the state, as it were that time. So he may have acted in the capacity of instructions, even though not written. However, the point I'm trying to make from the case of Mustapha is this.
The volume of the TV show is still up. Turn it down a bit.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
From the beginning of this case to the judgment, we can see activity, judgment, activity came. We see them taken to court, they argue this, they argue that. At the end of the judgment came. We have had a lot of corrupt politicians in this country. Once they have been taken to court, you don't hear of them permanently again. I want to ask the learned person, the fan, they are part of the judiciary. What is the judiciary doing about this permanently silent cases of corruption against leaders, governors, and politicians? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You know, that the perception is that, well, he couldn't have used the instrument of states, you see, to execute a personal, you know, people aided him. You know, and we're not talking about that. And if we talk about it, therein lies our common salvation.
But
that's how we're going to punch the system.
But we can say that was not the case before the courts, am I right, sir? Was that the case?
Well, it's an interwoven affair.
Okay.
It is not, you cannot isolate one from the other.
That's right.
We're talking about the philosophy of faith, the psychology of faith, the thoughts behind it, and the action we have seen. You see, what the questionnaire was talking about is, why is it that, it took almost 11 years or more to get Al-Mustapha convicted, and politicians who stole billions of dollars or naira have gotten away with it. And say, what are we doing about corruption? Corruption is in you, corruption is in me, corruption is in all of us.
Let's talk about
what is important is that we must remain committed, or we must remain resolved to fight corruption with all our soul and with all our might. You know, it's not only the judiciary. It takes the witness. Just last week, we secured conviction of a superintendent of police who demanded 500,000, 1 million naira bribe from an innocent complainant. He was alleged to have siphoned military fuel or diverted military fuel. The police officer thought he was wise, said, "Give me 1 million naira." The man said, "I didn't divert fuel. I was not going to give you 1 million." He reported to ICPC. ICPC did a sting operation. The police officer got 500,000 naira. And at trial, I conducted a trial in Benin. And he was convicted of demanding bribe and sentenced to 7 years. It took us 4 years to go through the trial. You see, criminal trial is not like civil trial. It takes a very slow process. And it must be thorough process. Because to put a man to face criminal trial is not an easy thing. It's not a simple thing. Apart from the social castigation or social coloration that gives, when you say I'm corrupt and you charge me to court, I mean, if it's the same society, people avoid me. They don't want to do business with me. My children are isolated and ostracized in school, and everybody tries to avoid me. So criminal trial is something that has to be taken very carefully. That's why, but for these criminal politicians we are talking, they were allegations and they remain so until they are convicted.
Very well said. Talking about ostracization, we'll take this call before he feels ostracized. This is Godi from Akwanga. Godi, good morning. Godi, good morning. Oh dear. All right.
Godi, we advise you to call again. Now, I wanted to take this in a different twist. We're talking about the judicial side of it. Let's look at the humanity of this case. The family of Kudirat. Do you think this is a Pyrrhic victory for them, or justice has been served, taking into consideration the length of time it took before they got judgment?
I had the doctor speaking on television last night.
Yes, please.
And I am convinced they were satisfied. Because, you see, It is not, what we are talking about is not a crime against individual. It's a crime against the society and humanity. You see, it was not Kudira's children that went to court to prosecute. They were not even witnesses. They were probably not there more than one or twice to witness the proceedings. But the truth of the matter is that the crime was committed against the society. You see, the essence of state is to protect the lives and property of every citizen. And that is why laws are made to protect individual and collective rights of the citizen. What Al-Mustapha and the other gentleman did is that they committed crime against society.
Okay, this is over to you, Esther Zoma. I am no activist, but I'm sure, coming from a background of knowing so much about non-governmental organizations, he spoke about taking bribe. Somebody having to pay for their matter to be looked into. Is there any hope for the masses? Is there any hope for the average Nigerian in getting justice if the only thing that can be done is to pay before it's given to you?
You see, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. If you don't want to waste time, then you pay for it. You see? So at each point, when there's a demand, for money, for anything at all, the individual has a choice. There's always a choice. At each point, the human being is confronted with choices. We either choose to conform or we choose to upgrade the society. It's always a point, and it boils down to us, not the system. Think about it. What would have happened, for instance, if the family of Kudirat had said, "Oh, let it go"?
All right.
What could have happened? But above all that, it boils down to the individual.
It boils down to the individual.
And besides, you see, when we are talking of corruption, you will find that the system in Nigeria gives opportunity for corruption. Once there is no opportunity, let every Nigerian guess his right, no matter how small, no matter where, no matter how, because public officers are paid for giving the service. But where you create an environment where people will have to cringe, for instance, I had some young people in my office some other day. They asked me, "Is it possible for us to get job in this country if we are not connected?" And I told them that I believe you can. They didn't believe me.
Because it's very difficult.
Very difficult.
And they said, unless you're a child of a minister or a senator, they came to me because they knew I was an SAN and that I'm in the position to influence. I said, I don't do it, even for my children. For instance, when they are going to university, I told them I was not going to beg any vice chancellor, I was not going to beg anybody for admission. You either pass your exam and get admitted or get out of the place.
We're going to take a break shortly, but before we do that, I just wanted, this is so important. The counsel to the accused have said this is a travesty of justice. This is a politically motivated judgment, and they are going to appeal. In one word, do they have a chance?
I have not seen the record. I have not even read the judgment. But as I said, it was a misstatement. It was an uncharitable one. And I didn't expect him to say that. He was too emotional about it.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. This is Kakaki, the African Voice. We'll now take a break. We'll be back shortly. And when we return, we'll be looking at another issue still relating to a court judgment, though this time it shall be the Supreme Court's verdict terminating the tenure of 5 state governors in Nigeria. To stay with us.
The judiciary in Nigeria has shocked observers and the public and also commentators with 2 landmark judgments, the first being the Supreme Court pronouncement last Friday, which ended the tenure in office of 5 state governors, Musla Yanko of Adamawa, Timothy Silva of Bayelsa, Liali Moki of Cross River, Ibrahim Idris of Kogi, and Aliyu Wabako of Swakato State. The former governors have since left office, and in accordance to a directive by the Attorney General of the Federation, the speakers of the affected state houses of assembly have effectively taken over as acting governor. However, the case of Kogi State remains a peculiar one, which initially sparked off controversy, but following the intervention of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the confusion may have been sorted out. But has it really been settled? INEC says the governor's election conducted on December 3rd, 2011 in Kogi State, which produced Idris Wada as winner, stays. The implication here is that the swearing in of Wada last Friday is valid until a court says otherwise. However, a group which calls itself Kogi Stakeholders seems to be challenging the position, saying that attempts to install Idris Wada will amount to rewriting the judgment of the Supreme Court as clarified by the directive issued by the Attorney General of the Federation. Based on the Supreme Court judgment, they say the election of December 3rd, 2011 is contrary to the provisions of the 1999 Constitution, which requires that an election to the office of governor of a state be held 90 days before the expiration of the term in office of the last holder. Clearly, the controversy rages, and it is not helped by the fact that both the said acting governor, Abdullahi Bello, and Idris Wada, the said governor, did resume office simultaneously, although this has been resolved. We still have our guests here in the studio to talk about this. And my first question will be, what do you make of the Supreme Court's judgment that has terminated the tenures? Let's talk about the general one before we come back to Kogi State. The tenure of the 5 governors. What do you make of that judgment?
In 3 directions. First and foremost, I see it as vindication of the integrity, of the patriotism and courage of Professor Tairu Jega and the men of the commission who chose to pursue the matter to the Supreme Court. You will recall that what happened was that each of these 5 governors had their election nullified by reason of exclusion of some candidates or some other political parties. It was not on the merit as such. And they had to conduct a fresh election. And after conducting a fresh election, they took a second oath of allegiance and oath of office. And when the Constitution says all the governors of states shall have a term of 4 years, definite. So let me say that the INEC has shown courage, commitment, and patriotism of the highest order by asking the Supreme Court to determine it. Because I say so because before, when the INEC lost in the Court of Appeal, I read at least 3 newspaper editorials condemning INEC as busybody, as a bias umpire, as partisan, as this. I go to the next one. It is also an opportunity to deepen our constitutional democracy. You know, constitution is like a car or a vehicle with about 50 gears. You never know whether these gears are functional or defective until you use them. You never know exactly which clause of our constitution is defective or effective until we try them. Nobody has ever thought of the effectiveness or defectiveness of Section 182 of the 1999 Constitution. And I look at it again as it is a challenge to Nigerians and particularly the press that where we perceive a misapplication or defect in our Constitution, the only authority, the only body that the law creates or puts in place to administer and interpret is the courts. Don't let us be afraid of going to court to ask for interpretation of the law, either of our rights or of the corporate rights of Nigerians. So from these 3 perspectives, I believe that the judgment has helped us to deepen our democracy, to further give an effect to the meaning and interpretation of our Constitution and show the defect.
Okay, Esther, this is just to buttress what he's saying. He spoke about patriotism and courage and constitutional democracy. Now, does it not bother you? Is it not worrisome that they did not give directions in the judgment as to what to happen in the various states, but allowed confusion and anarchy to set in, especially looking at the case of the of Honorable Abdullahi Bello and Captain Idris Wada?
Thank you very much. You see, the oracles of the Supreme Court, you see, their pronouncements cascade down to us, mere mortals, from eternal realms. You know, they speak in quotes. You know, they are not just like us. You know, they just, like the letter 6 said, they are representatives of God on earth. So when they speak, you know, what we do is that in awe, we also take further direction from them. Say, please, this thing you said, what does it really mean? Okay? That is it. They don't come out and say, oh, you, go and take water. We don't say, oh, water might be necessary. But they will say, who is taking water now? Because they are representatives of God. And God does not speak our language, really. He ministers to our spirit. So that was why they went. What was the intent of the lawmakers? What was the spirit of the provisions of Section 180? What was the intent? What society was envisaged? They now said, oh, this is the spirit behind the provision. And they pronounced. It's like the oracle. They said, okay, this is what you do. But we will now have to take steps. Then, oh, if we now break it down, you know, because we are human beings, what does it mean for us? We simply have to take steps. You see, we are lucky, we are fortunate that at a time like this, Professor Jega is manning the INEC. Otherwise, there would have been chaos in the system. Now, the chief law officer of the state, in his duty, okay, functions of his office are, oh, let there be peace. Because definitely some people will go back to the oracle to seek clarification. It's imminent. But while that is happening, what happens? And I said, okay, do this. While we are waiting, while you take steps, and we seek further clarifications from the oracles and the Supreme Court. That is it. You can never really know. Who would have thought that Section 182 will spring forth ideas like de facto governor, de jure governor. Governor as a matter of fact, governor as a matter of law. I am telling you, these people, they are closer to God.
So can the judiciary overrule the Constitution?
No, don't get it wrong.
It's the spirit. They have gone. It's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual venture. That's what I'm saying. They have gone to the spirits.
No, don't get it wrong.
Yes, please.
You see, what the Supreme Court has done is to tell you what the Constitution says.
The
Supreme
spirit behind
Court
it
cannot tell you of things that was not before them.
Yes.
The election of Kogi State or however was not a matter before the
Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court will never pronounce on a matter that is not before them. And of course, if any of the parties had taken an application before judgment and say this has been the development, yes, the law says they can take judicial notice of events, but they are not bound. They have no obligation to incorporate that into an argument of November.
That's right. In the case of Kogi State.
So what we are saying in effect is that what the Attorney General did is in his duty to preserve law and order and say pending the clarification, let the speakers take their place. But Kogi has a peculiar circumstance. No, don't blame the Attorney General. Let us commend his initiative. Let us close our eyes and imagine if he did not give the directive, what would have happened? I know a lot of the governors would have stayed there. Hey, you cease to be governors. Vacate. They did not say anything about who takes over.
You know what
the director of the Attorney General was an administrative ingenuity to say, let there be peace in this state. Let apply Section 191 of the Constitution. So, and if you look at it very critically, what happened on the 27th of January was not envisaged by Section 191.
Unfortunately, sir, the administrative ingenuity of the Attorney General of the Federation almost turned Kogi State into a state of political quagmire. Yes. Yeah. And what comes to mind, looking at it, you see, that is the judiciary. Both from the federal to the state, that caused this confusion. The Attorney General made a statement which was right, administrative ingenuity. The interpretation in Kogi State was different. For the first time, I don't know if it's ever happened, the president of the Customary Court of Appeal swore in an executive of a state. At the same time, the Attorney General was swearing in somebody concurrently. The Chief Judge, was swearing concurrently. And that created a political fiasco that right now, we thank God, has been solved. Now, shouldn't there have been some form of interpretation that have said, this is the situation for the 5 states. However, in the state of Kogi, this is what is on the ground, and this is what should be done. Does he have the right or the authority to do that? I'm talking about the Attorney General of the Federation.
Well, you see, as I said to you, the primary responsibility of the Attorney General of the Federation is to guide the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in attaining its primary objective, maintenance of peace, law, and order. Therefore, where there is a confusion, as we had, it was only incumbent on him to take the initiative. Therefore, we must commend his initiative. But as a human being, he's not perfect.
All right.
So the issue of Kogi is an exception to the rule. And, well, I would have thought now, but that now, the chairman of INEC and the office of the Attorney General will have related one way or the other and say, well, this is what we did in Kogi. What is your view, sir? Or what should be the position? In any event, Professor Terry Jaga last night has told the whole world that the election conducted in Kogi on the 3rd of December 2011 stands. And that the governor elected that by that process, he remains the governor and should be sworn in. That is his responsibility. Do you know, when election is conducted, it is not possible for anybody.
Okay, well, we just have a caller on the line. Bjordan calling from Lagos. Bjordan, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
What are your contributions?
The military saw themselves as all in all, and they put the country in a situation that we all have now, corruption galore and all that. The extremism with which they rule this nation is part of what we're going through. I'm in love with the two people, the line people you have on the panel this morning. They spoke it. The justice of the nation has taken its course. Mustapha should go and face the music, whether he was directed by Abaka and all that material now. Was part of the conspiracy that, you know, that got Mr. Abiola killed, so he should also face the music. It's about time that this nation got up to face all the mess that the military had left up. I think the corruption is another thing. The judiciary is part of the problem, just as the police. So the corruption that we have, you know, should be another area where the judiciary should rise up to the occasion and get their good names brought back, you know, so that people can start respecting them, because the judiciary is
that everywhere in society, every arm is corrupt. So how can you defend that?
Well, his opinion, he has a fundamental right to his opinion, okay? So, ordinarily, I will defend his right to say what he's saying. But whether or not it is true is, you know, a different, yes. Because one, you know, another person will say, well, the judiciary is the salvation of our nationhood. That the judiciary at this time, you know, they are the only beacon of light in our entire corporate existence. One will also argue that it is the judiciary. Because, you see, they are the ones who are saying that, listen, this is what you do. You don't do that with him. And no matter whose axe is God, we're talking about the ruling party. If you can place it in perspective, 5 governors in one fell swoop. The judiciary said, no, this is wrong. One would have thought ordinarily that, the judiciary will play to the gallery. They, you know, they will do the biddings of the incumbent. But they did not. So, we still have hope. Our salvation lies in the judiciary. I made both to say. Yes. I
was also going to say that shouldn't you congratulate the executive? I mean, in the past we used to hear about executive interference. I mean, if the executive of the Federation seem not to be interfering anymore. I mean, that should be...
No, actually, no matter how much the executive wants to interfere, supposing the judiciary refuses to budge. That's why I said, it's eventually it's about personal decision. Supposing the judiciary it's a personal decision that we're not going to do this. You know what? Exactly, you just want a single human being. What is he going to do?
Even when we are saying that the executive are interfering with the judiciary, they may interfere at the lower level. I mean, just as my learned friend puts it, the men and women that we have in our Supreme Court and Superior Court of Records are men who have seen it all.
Exactly.
Who, by the grace of God, they are only looking to God. Look, what else after Supreme Court justice? What else?
That's right.
And if God makes you his ambassador on earth, what else are you looking for? And a judge will face two judgments on the day of judgment before the Almighty God, as a human being
and as a judge.
And God will ask him, as a human being, how did you perform? And as my representative on earth as a judge, how did you perform? So when most of them are conscious of this position. And of course, you find that these are men who have gone through processes, who have gone through life, and they are in their over 60s. What are they looking for? So I want to say that the integrity of our justices is impeachable, and at this moment,
especially,
we must thank our God that we have men and women of exemplary conduct, exemplary.
You see,
below. I don't know of anybody. A lot of times we hear people talk of bribery and corruption.
But
But it's inexistent. It happens.
Nobody has ever proved it. And where they have been proved, they were dealt with immediately.
I was going to say that because there have been a few judges in this country that have been relieved of their position by reason of...
That's what I said. Those who have been proved, even though I don't agree with some of those decisions,
okay,
it's perception.
Really?
It's perception. Take for instance, I don't want to go into details, but let me say that what is important is that...
If your details will illustrate your point more clearly, please do.
No. What I'm trying to say is that we have seen cases where there are allegations of corruption against judges. And we have found out that, yes, they were dealt with, and later it turned out that they ought not to have been convicted or vilified. I mean, but look, Nigeria will say they gave a judge 1 billion naira and asked them how did he get it? Is it by transfer or by cash or how?
We have a caller. I have a caller from Warri. Frank. Good morning to you.
I want to
hello. Can you turn down
the volume of your television
please.
set?
Let's take it down a notch. Thank you.
Okay. Please, I want to say that my position, I have a point in the issue of Kogi.
Oh, you're taking us back.
Are you hearing me?
Go ahead.
The Kogi issue, I think that the Supreme Court has allowed all the exercises that was done from the time of this case up to today. By the time of the Supreme Court, they have allowed all exercises, apart from the duly conducted primary before that particular day up to today. I think all that things that have been done is the knowledge.
From what source are you getting your arguments from? Do you agree with him, sir?
No, I'm sorry.
That is my underground view now of the Supreme Court.
On television and radio and newspaper have not even read the judgment. By the grace of God, I'm the lead counsel of the INEC. The issue of the primary was never before the Supreme Court. The issue of the election was never before the Supreme Court. What the Supreme Court decided was that all governors of Nigeria elected by the process of election shall have a 4-year tenure. And that the fact that some took second oath will not make them to extend their tenure. This is Nigeria. All that the governor needs to do is to arrange a case where his tenure will be nullified. He takes second oath, he takes third oath, and ad infinitum. So the Supreme Court has put pay to that and said your tenure is 4 years. If you like, take 5 oaths. So when it is 4 years, you overclaim. So a lot of male commentators have misled Nigerians to believing that, oh, Supreme Court has nullified primaries, they have nullified the election. No, the statement of Professor Terry Jaga yesterday says all the scheduled elections we hold and that the election of Kogi is final. It is the only body that can nullify the election. Howsoever.
Thank you for putting that clarity. What was your final word?
Yes, my final word is this, sir. We should begin to question again. For avoidance of doubt, in the absence of the Chief Judge of the state, there are people who can act on his behalf.
Okay.
Okay? That was what played out in Kogi. But there is a germane question that ought to be determined. What then, is the position? To what extent is the oath, sanctimonious? Chief Judge of a state, is his capacity not the same as the Chief Judge of the Federation? We have to get it clear so that we don't say, oh, it was a mere oath. It is very, very necessary.
Important.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming. It's been a wonderful time having you. Two important and very, very well-read luminaries to us. Chief Adegboyega Awomolo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Principal Partner Awomolo and Associates, and also Esther Uzoma, a lawyer, a civil rights activist, national coordinator of Proactive Gender Initiatives, which is an NGO.
It is indeed evident. it is indeed evident. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your presence.
My pleasure.
All right, up next is Pan-African World. Please stay tuned. Kakakili African Voice resumes shortly.